Naomi had always been a mystery to me. Powerful, reserved, the kind of woman who could silence a room with nothing more than a glance. She carried herself with an effortless confidence, never revealing more than what was necessary, never allowing anyone to get too close. I admired her, maybe more than I should have. Working for her was intense, demanding, precise, relentless. She had expectations, and failure was never an option. But beneath that rigid professionalism, there was something else. Something unreadable in the way she observed people, the way she calculated every move before making it. I had spent months trying to decipher her. And then, at the end of a long day, she called my name. I had been gathering my things, ready to leave, when her voice cut through the quiet office. "Come to my house tonight," she said, her tone smooth, controlled. "We need to talk." I froze. The words were simple, but they sent a jolt through my system. It wasn't a request. It wasn't exactly a command either. It was something in between. An invitation laced with something I couldn't quite name. My heart stuttered in my chest as I turned to face her. She was standing by her desk, her expression unreadable, eyes fixed on me with that piercing gaze that always made me feel like she could see straight through me. "What is this about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. A small smile touched her lips, but it wasn't one of amusement. "You'll find out when you get there." And that was it. No further explanation. No opportunity to decline. Just an address, one I recognized instantly as her address, scribbled onto a slip of paper before she dismissed me with nothing more than a knowing look. I should have said no. I should have walked away, let curiosity die in the quiet of the evening, told myself that whatever this was, it wasn't my place to question it. But deep down, I already knew. I was going. No matter what this meeting was about. No matter what it meant. I was going. I stood outside her front door for longer than I should have, trying to steady my breath. It wasn't nerves. Not exactly. It was something else. Something unfamiliar curling in my stomach, something tense in my chest. The invitation had been vague. "We need to talk," but the way she had looked at me when she said it, the way she had written down her home address instead of sending an email, left too many unanswered questions lingering in my mind. I finally exhaled and rang the doorbell. The wait was brief, and then she was there. Naomi, looking nothing like the woman I worked for. Her sharp suits were gone, replaced by something softer, elegant but casual. A silk blouse, sleeves pushed up to her elbows. Dark pants, bare feet against the wooden floor. Her hair was down, loose in a way I had never seen before. I didn't realize I was staring until she smiled, tilting her head just slightly. "Come in." Her voice was the same as always, calm, smooth, in control. But something about the way she said it sent a ripple through me. I stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind me, and immediately I knew. This wasn't about work. Her home was exactly what I had imagined. Sophisticated, modern, every detail intentional. But what I hadn't expected was the atmosphere. The soft lighting. The warmth of the space. The scent of something rich and savory lingering in the air. And then the dining table. No paperwork. No contracts waiting to be signed. Just 2 glasses of wine and a carefully plated meal. I turned to her, raising an eyebrow. She caught the look and smirked slightly. "Surprised?" "A little," I admitted. "You work too hard," she said simply, picking up the bottle of wine and pouring into my glass before filling her own. I figured we deserved a night without pressure. Without pressure. Easy to say. Hard to feel when her gaze held mine like that, steady, unwavering, as if she knew something I didn't. I swallowed, forcing a small smile as I pulled out a chair. "That's unexpected." She sat across from me, fingers trailing along the stem of her glass. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? I hesitated for a second too long. Her lips curved into something knowing. "You don't have to answer that." I exhaled a quiet laugh, shaking my head. Naomi was always in control. Always the one dictating the pace of a conversation, of a negotiation, of a moment. And tonight was no different. Except, it was. Because this wasn't a business meeting. This wasn't a performance or an obligation or a casual dinner with my boss. This was something else. Something neither of us was saying out loud. The meal was effortless. Conversation flowed easily. Stories, laughter, things that never would have been said within office walls. It was dangerous how natural it felt. How easily I forgot who she was supposed to be to me. And then, she reached for my hand. It was nothing. A passing touch, a brief brush of fingertips against my skin. But it wasn't nothing. Because my breath caught. Because I knew in that instant, that I had already crossed a line in my mind before anything had even happened. I looked at her. She was already watching me, waiting. And in that second, in that tiny, insignificant moment, I realized that whatever this was between us, whatever this night was turning into, it wasn't something I could ignore anymore. I should have left. I should have thanked her for dinner, made up some excuse about an early morning, and walked out the door before this could become something I couldn't take back. But I didn't. I stayed. And the worst part, I wanted to stay, because the air between us was too thick, too charged with something unspoken yet undeniable. Because I could feel her eyes on me, lingering a second longer than necessary, watching me the way someone watches a storm rolling in, waiting for it to break. And because deep down, I wanted to see where this would go. She poured more wine, her fingers wrapped around the bottle with effortless grace, the deep red liquid swirling into my glass. Her movements were slow, deliberate. Everything about her was. I took a sip, trying to steady myself, but the moment I set the glass down, she leaned in just slightly, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of her perfume. Something dark, something dangerous. "Have you ever thought about it?" she asked, her voice low, smooth. I felt my pulse stutter. I didn't ask what. I didn't need to. We both knew. Her gaze locked onto mine, unreadable, waiting. I should have laughed it off. I should have given some flippant answer, turned the moment into a joke, pretended that my stomach wasn't tightening, that my breath hadn't just caught in my throat. But I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I just looked at her. Really looked at her. At the way her lips parted slightly, at the way her fingers tapped once, just once, against the base of her glass, as if waiting for me to speak first. The space between us felt smaller than it had been minutes ago. Or maybe I had just stopped noticing anything else. The logical part of me was screaming. This was a mistake. A huge mistake. She was my boss. This was a line that wasn't supposed to be crossed, a boundary that wasn't supposed to be blurred. But then, she tilted her head, her eyes never leaving mine, and suddenly the room felt too warm. Too close. Too much. And I realized, I was already too far gone. I didn't even know when I had leaned in, when the space between us had become almost non-existent. But I could feel the warmth of her breath now, see the way her lashes fluttered just slightly when my fingers brushed the table, too close to hers. The air between us was no longer just charged. It was ticking, like a fuse that had already been lit. And the second one of us moved, everything would change. She leaned in first. Or maybe it was me. It didn't matter. What mattered was the moment before. The split second where everything held still. The weight of her gaze, the tension in the air, the sharp pull of anticipation tightening in my stomach. My breath hitched. Her eyes flickered to my lips, and I knew. There was no more hesitation. No more space between us. And when our lips finally met, the world tilted. Everything else, the rules, the consequences, the very concept of reason, faded into nothing. There was only her. Only the warmth of her mouth against mine, the slow, deliberate way she deepened the kiss, the way her fingers slid against my skin with a certainty that sent a shiver down my spine. I melted into it, into her, into the undeniable truth that I had wanted this, wanted her, long before I had admitted it to myself. The night unraveled in whispers, in fingertips tracing paths across unfamiliar skin, in the slow, intoxicating exploration of something neither of us had planned for, but neither of us wanted to stop. She moved with purpose, with control, with a patience that was almost torturous. And I let her. I let her take her time. Let her learn me. Let myself be learned. And in that darkness, beneath the weight of her attention, nothing else existed. Not the boundaries we were shattering. Not the questions waiting for us in the morning. Not the inevitable shift in the way we would look at each other when the sun rose. Because right now there were no rules. No barriers. Only us. I woke up before her. The room was still wrapped in shadows, the faintest trace of light creeping through the curtains. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, feeling the slow rise and fall of my breath, the quiet hum of my own heartbeat. Then I turned. She was still asleep beside me, her features softer in the dim glow of morning. Her guard was down. No sharp gaze. No careful calculation. Just her. My boss. The thought sent a ripple of something uncertain through me. Because last night had changed everything. Because there was no pretending this hadn't happened. Because we had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I swallowed, staring at the ceiling, at the pieces of my life that had shifted overnight. I didn't regret it. I couldn't regret it. But the question still lingered, unspoken, unavoidable. What happens now?